The world was stunned today by the death of Diego Ricardo, the youngest person on the planet. The youngest person on Earth was 18 years, 4 months, 20 days, 16 hours, and 8 minutes old.
Doesn't matter. It's all over in 50 years. It's too late.
Move along!
Have you been?
I haven't seen you for nearly 20 years.
I need your help. Not for me, a girl. Need to get her to the coast, past security checkpoints.
Show him.
Now you know what's at stake.
We're almost there, Key. We're almost there.
The year is 2027. The whole world is shocked by the news of the doom of 18-year-old Diego Ricardo, the youngest inhabitant of the planet. Since 2010, not a single child has been born on Earth. A man named Theodore Faraon does not share everyone's grief and rushes to work, but another terrorist attack occurs in front of him in the city. Theo does come to the office, where everyone is talking about what happened to Diego. This annoys Theo, so he asks the boss for permission to go home. The news is constantly broadcasting about the chaos going on in all the countries of the world. The biggest problem in Britain right now is the influx of illegal immigrants. Theo met up with his old friend Jasper. They discussed what happened today. Theo doesn't understand why everyone is mourning Diego because he was far from being a good man. A bus with illegal immigrants passed by, and the authorities were actively hunting them. Jasper's house is in a secret place in the woods, so the men had to clear a passage of branches. Theo complained to the friend about his depression, and Jasper offered to let him live with him and his wife. But the man didn't think it was a good idea. Jasper's wife is paralyzed, so he takes care of her. Among the commemorative photos, Theo saw a picture of him with his ex-wife and their son. Jasper grows illegal plants in his home. One of his customers, by the way, is a man who works at the immigration control. There are many theories that the authorities are developing a project to save humanity and a cure for infertility, but Theo does not believe it. He is convinced that it is too late to save the planet because the world is going in tatters. The next morning, Theo, as always, was going to work. The streets are full of mayhem, and the police can barely contain the influx of illegal immigrants. To honor Diego's memory, grieving people lay flowers at his photographs. Suddenly, 2 masked men attacked Theo and dragged him into a car. The kidnappers covered his face and told him that they were fighting the authorities to recognize the equal rights of all migrants. A certain woman ordered her accomplice to free Theo. He was shocked to see his ex-wife Julian. It turned out that she was one of the main organizers of the protests against the arbitrariness of the authorities. Theo remembered seeing her picture on wanted ads recently. Julian, as if nothing had happened, offered the ex-husband a walk. They had not seen each other for 20 years, and they had both lost their parents. Julian decided to cut right to the chase and told Theo that they needed transit papers to get one refugee girl through the checkpoints to the sea. Theo's influential brother could help with that. The man does not want to get involved in this and much less ask his brother for help. Julian's men put the sack back on him and threatened that if he told anyone about this, he was finished. Next, Theo was pushed out of the car. People continue to protest in the streets, some believing that the infertility epidemic that has struck humanity is God's punishment. Theo nevertheless decided to transcend his pride and pay a visit to his rich brother, who is the owner of the famous state-funded Ark of the Arts. Nigel told that he and his team are in the business of salvaging surviving works of art around the world. When asked what brought him here, Theo lied that he was dating a woman who wants to visit her sick relative abroad. But in order to travel to another country, she needs to make transit papers as quickly as possible. Despite the risks and tighter controls, Nigel promised to help. Soon Theo met with Luke, Julian's accomplice, and said that he managed to get the documents, but only for a couple. That is, Theo will have to accompany this girl. The next time Theo met Julian on the bus to give her the completed papers, the man and woman once divorced because they could not survive the loss of their common child. Julian, Theo, and Luke were about to set off. In addition to them, there was also a woman named Miriam and Key, the same girl for whom they obtained transit papers. On the way, Theo questioned Key as to why she had to flee the country so urgently, but she was clearly in no mood to answer his questions. At one point they were blocked by a burning car and then attacked by an angry armed mob. The shot went straight to Julian. The company panicked, but Luke, who was driving, still managed to get away from the pursuit. However, they were soon stopped by the police. Theo didn't expect Luke to pull a gun and take the officers' lives. Julian passed away. Miriam performed the rite by the side of the road, and Theo, who could not believe what had happened, wept helplessly. Despite the long separation, he loved Julian very much. It was time to continue on the road. Luke brought the company to the farm, where he said they were safe. Soon the whole group would be here to choose a new leader. Theo wanted to go back to London, but Luke persuaded him to wait until morning, since it was too dangerous now. Theo was provided with clean clothes. In the evening, Miriam told him that Key wanted to talk to him and was waiting for him in the barn. Meanwhile, members of the group toasted in honor of Luke, who would probably be the new leader. Miriam escorted Theo to the barn, saying she would wait outside. Key asked Theo not to leave and to accompany her to the ship, for Julian had said he was the only one she could trust. Theo doesn't want to get involved, but when Key took off her clothes, what he saw shocked him. Key was the first woman to become pregnant for the first time in 18 years. Theo realized that the fate of all mankind was at stake. No one hoped for this miracle anymore. The news reported that the leader of the terrorist group, Julian, was dead. Authorities now intend to catch and arrest the remaining members of the group. Everyone was wondering what to do now. Theo was convinced that the whole world should find out about Key's pregnancy, but Luke's people doubted it was a good idea. Theo was indignant, realizing that they wanted to use the baby for their own political purposes. Key uncompromisingly declared that she would have the baby here and then go with him to safety as planned. At night, Theo heard voices outside the window. One of the members of the group showed up wounded, and his accomplices feared that he was being followed by the police. Theo, overhearing the conversation, realized that the group had actually planned an assassination attempt on Julian. Now the men intend to get rid of Theo and take the child, thereby gaining an undeniable advantage. Theo immediately sneaked into Miriam and Key's room, telling them what he had heard. Trying not to make any noise, the company went outside and were about to flee, but the car would not start. A chase was organized for Theo and the women, but the gang members did not shoot for fear of injuring the girl. Finally, they managed to start the car and break away from the pursuit. Theo knew only one place where they would be safe and drove to Jasper's house, explaining the situation to him. Of course, the old friend could not leave him in trouble. Miriam talked about the Humanity Project, where they need to send Key as soon as possible. Her child is the miracle the whole world is waiting for. When Theo asked Key who the father of her baby was, she admitted that she didn't know exactly. She was now 8 months pregnant. At first she didn't know what was happening to her, but then her belly began to grow. Key came up with a name for her unborn child, Froley. Theo advised her to think again, since it is the first child in almost 20 years. Jasper says he knows how to get on the ship. The border guard, who buys illegal plants from him, can help him do so. In the evening, the company relaxed before the perilous mission. Jasper told the women about Dylan, Theo, and Julian's son, who had passed away at an early age from an illness. After that, Theo lost faith in good things. In the morning, the uninvited guests arrived. Jasper explained to the friends how to find Sid. He also told them about their secret code, thanks to which Sid will understand that they can be trusted. Theo couldn't believe it when he realized that Jasper wasn't going to go with them. He said he wanted to buy them time because the most important thing now was to save Key and her baby. Back at the house, Jasper told his wife that he loved her. He was going to give her the poison, knowing that no one but him would take care of her. Theo, Miriam, and Key watched from the woods as the terrorists, without obtaining any information from Jasper, took his life in cold blood. Theo had already lost everyone he cared about. Now the meaning of his life is to take Key to a safe place. The company was waiting for Sid at the arranged place. Miriam told Theo that she had once worked as a midwife in a hospital. Women increasingly began to lose their babies in the early gestational age. Gradually, women stopped coming to their obstetric department altogether, and the same thing was happening in every hospital in every country. Now they finally had hope. An armored car drove up to the building, the driver of which turned out to be a menacing-looking man. When Sid heard the code, he knew that these men needed help. They set off again and soon arrived at the checkpoint. Key felt pains in her stomach, even though she was not yet 9 months pregnant. Sid told them to find a gypsy woman named Zara, who would arrange for them to spend the night. Sid led the company out of the car under the guise of prisoners to avoid attracting unnecessary attention. Then they were led into a bus full of frightened people. According to Miriam, the ship from the Humanity Project would not arrive until tomorrow. Key began to have contractions, which became more frequent every hour. Soon her water broke, which means she should give birth very soon. When the bus arrived at another checkpoint, soldiers came in to check. The soldier was furious that Miriam was praying. Theo and Key saw the woman being led outside to take her life. When the detainees were finally released from the bus, Theo did not leave Key's side because the flow of people here was enormous. Fortunately, they quickly found Zara, who took them to safety. Key could no longer endure the pain, so Theo tried to cheer her up in every way possible. Zara led them to a building full of homeless refugees and gave them a private room. Theo had no idea how women went into labor, but he was going to do everything he could to help Key. The girl was very frightened and remembered how Miriam had taught her to breathe properly. Soon Key gave birth to a healthy baby girl. The next morning, Sid and Zara knocked on the door. Key had hidden her daughter and Theo had to let the guests in. Sid immediately noticed that the girl was hiding something. When they saw the real baby, the man and woman were shocked. Sid pulled a gun on them because he saw pictures of Theo and Key on the news. The authorities promised a huge reward for information on their whereabouts. Zara attacked Sid and ran away with the company. Sid, however, continued to pursue them and shoot. Taking a heavy object, Theo took the man's life. Theo tried to explain to Zara, who could barely understand English, that they needed a boat. The woman led them along. Everywhere on the street, armed people are protesting. Zara leads Theo, Key, and her daughter to people who can hide them for a while. Key stated that she wanted to name her daughter Bazooka because Froley is a man's name. Theo doesn't think that's a good idea. They were soon told that the boat would be delivered in half an hour and that they should stay here until then. The company set out again on a dangerous journey. The streets are in chaos and shots are being fired everywhere. Suddenly, Luke and his gang showed up. They have taken Key and her daughter, preparing to execute Theo and Zara. Taking advantage of the ensuing gunfight, Theo and Zara escaped. In the confusion, they lost each other almost immediately. Theo had to hide in an overturned bus because the gunfire outside wouldn't stop. But he couldn't stay here much longer, so Theo ran out of his hiding place, hiding again. There was an explosion. Theo hurried to hide in the half-destroyed building, where there were many wounded. However, the terrorists got in here as well, engaging in a firefight with the military outside. When Theo heard the infant crying, he quickly found Key and her daughter. Luke pointed a gun at Theo, as he could not allow their faction to lose the major advantage. It is the only way they will stop the oppression of migrants. Theo, Key, and her daughter rushed to escape. Luke did not have time to stop them as he was shot. All the people who had been hiding in the building when they saw the child began to reach for this miracle. For the first time in so long, they finally found the hope they had long lost. The soldiers lowered their weapons at the sight of Key and her newborn daughter. Theo didn't leave their side, ready to protect Key and the child at the cost of his own life. In the street, soldiers parted before the first woman who managed to give the world a child. Suddenly, there were gunshots and explosions again. Theo, Key, and the daughter managed to escape and met Zara, who took them to the boat. Theo wanted the woman to go with them, but she, making sure they were safe, stayed behind. Theo, Key, and the baby took the boat out into the ocean and waited for the ship. In the sky, military slayers flew by. Explosions rang out in the distance. Key only now realized that Theo was badly hurt. He told the girl that she must now protect her daughter, who gave hope to humanity at all costs. Key had finally decided on a name for her daughter. She would name her Dylan, after the late son of Theo. The man passed away with a smile on his face, knowing that he had done his duty. In the final shots, we see the ship